Hello, everybody who has been following my breast cancer journey. I just wanted to update you. I know it's been a while. I've been at home recovering. I feel like that I've recovered a lot, and I don't know. I guess I've been sorry. I think I've been more trying to do things like garden and walk and paint and kind of got behind on this journey, but I did want to talk a little bit about what happened. I don't know. I went into the hospital on April 8th, and it's just like from then I lost track of time. I started to feel sick on the 7th of April and a little bit before then. And there's a lizard back there. And it was right before having to do chemo and tests, go to labs, and I was trying to bring my fever down because I've done it before, but I couldn't bring it down. And I went there, and I was exactly 100.4, and they were like, "You got a fever." And so they gave me a Tylenol, and they took my labs, but they said you need to go over to the ER. And I just didn't want to go, and I did. And when I got there, my fever had gone away because I guess the Tylenol had kicked in. But they ended up seeing me in the ER, and the doctor said I had pneumonia, which shocked me. I mean, that's like I didn't believe I had pneumonia. I wasn't coughing or sneezing or anything, but I had pneumonia. So I did have a fever, and so they put me in the hospital. And for the first couple days, I was sick, but I didn't immediately, at least to my knowledge, go on oxygen. But as I was there, I just guess I had like a respiratory failure. At least that's what they said I had. They checked me for COVID 2 times. I didn't have COVID. But some reason I was having respiratory issues, and they wanted to check it out. As they were doing all this different fluids they were putting in my body, trying to find out whatever kind of infectious thing that they were trying to clear out of my body, nothing was working. They gave me medicines for viral pneumonia, bacteria pneumonia, this pneumonia, that pneumonia. Nothing was working. And except for it was just filling up my body with fluid, which made it harder and harder to breathe. And they done chest x-rays, and it showed in my lungs a lot of white stuff. And they couldn't figure out what that was. And I couldn't figure out what it was. I mean, if it was pneumonia, it would have started to clear. So it wasn't clearing. So then these doctors, they thought that they had some kind of novel disease. And they were really interested in finding out what they had. They thought that I had a combustion of cancer, and they wanted to get inside my lungs to see how bad it was, and they wanted to put me on a ventilator. And my lungs were so bad that they basically said, bring your family in, bring your girls in, because you're probably not going to make it, you know. And I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, I was praying to the Father. I was like, is this like how I'm gonna die? Like, I just, went into, I had a little bit of a fever, and now they're going to put me on a ventilator because they think I have a combustion of cancer cells. And my doctor, who was my cancer doctor, was on vacation for 2 weeks. The whole time I was in the hospital, she was gone. So I had another doctor who was a cancer doctor who kept visiting me, and he was letting them know that's impossible. You can't have a combustible cancer. That doesn't happen. It has to spread through the lymph nodes. But they weren't listening to him, right? And so I had doctor after doctor trying to come in and make me go on a ventilator, which I already had this conversation with one of my family members before, that it's the ventilator that causes you to pass away because it works against your lungs. And so what you have to do is to paralyze the lungs of the person to let the ventilator work. But what happens is, once my lungs are paralyzed, how am I going to bring it back? Right? So I refused. I was like, I don't know what you're going to do, but that's one thing you're not going to do. I'm not going on a ventilator. And I had doctor after doctor trying to convince me because they thought that they had a very, 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 very rare disease. And I think they were trying to either be famous, or they were trying to just figure it out, and they had to get to the bottom of it. But the infectious doctor came in, and he just basically said, leave her alone. She doesn't have any infection. She doesn't have any pneumonia. And so I started to deduct, like, well, what do I have? And I remember that after each one of my chemo sessions, they shoot me in the back of the arm with this thing called Onpro. It gives you white blood cells, and I think I have a picture of it on the website. And the white blood cells fight against infection. And I already had a high level of white blood cells because, I have cancer, and so you have white blood cells that are fighting the cancer. Then they give you more white blood cells. Well, I probably didn't need that shot of Onpro, and after every session, I would get that shot. Well, my white blood cell count was through the roof. Like, your white blood cell count normally is something like 8 to 10,000, maybe 12,000 at most, and I think mine was like 40,000. And then it was like came down to 24,000. It was just like outrageously high. And so I was telling them, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have got that shot of white blood cells. Maybe it's, white blood cells. And they were like, no, that's not it. And I've said, well, maybe it's treating me like the infection. Like, they can't find, there's more white blood cells than the infection that they can find, and it attacked me. Because there are some diseases where it'll attack you, like lupus, or some different type of diseases, the autoimmune. It'll come and it'll attack you because it can't really find what it needs to look for. So anyway, they were fighting me on that, and I was like, I think I got the answer. I think that it's just they have nowhere to go, and what you see as pneumonia is actually my white blood cells just floating around there, and you think it's cancer, but it's just my white blood cells. Anyway, long story short, it was very stressful when they told me I was gonna die, and I thought to myself, am I ready to die like that? Like, because I was like, well, maybe it's my time. But as I thought about it, I was like, I don't really want to die right now. I have family. I have my girls. They're transitioning into adulthood. I have my husband. And I just don't feel like right about it. And then closely after that, I kind of like my lungs just relapsed, and I was on 7 units of oxygen. And right before that, you go into on a ventilator, right? And I remember being on my bed and just suffering. And I felt this presence. I knew it was, I don't know who it was, but I knew there was a presence on my bed. Sat down at the foot of my bed, and it was comforting, but I was so out of it. I was just like, okay, I'm not alone, you know. I'm not alone. I can do this. We can, I'm not going to die. And so I started just, doing things so I could make myself better. I would only sleep at night in the bed, and then during the day, I would get myself out of the bed. I didn't care if I have to sit there from, 7:30 a.m. to 10 o'clock at night. So I was so out of breath. I couldn't walk from my chair to the bathroom without being out of breath. But I just kept trying to walk. I couldn't walk with a physical therapist from the chair to the wall. I mean, I didn't have any air capacity, but I just didn't give up, and I just had visions of going back home. That's really what I wanted to do. And I found myself, sorry, I'm outside, found myself, at the mercy of nurses, some good nurses, some really bad nurses. Um, when I laid in bed, I had to pee in a thing, and so I couldn't get out of bed at night. And some of the nurses didn't know how to work it, and I'd be laying in a puddle of my pee. And so out of it that it's just like, oh, and every 2 hours they'd wake you up and administer medicine, take labs, or it's like a hospital's impossible place to get better. And I knew that I was on the COVID floor because I work at the hospital, so I know what the COVID floor is. Even though I didn't have COVID, I was on the COVID floor. And there was this poor lady in some room next to me who cried and whimpered and was so in pain. I just felt her pain. I would just lay there and pray for her. And she had to been there 5 to 6 days. I was there for 13. So she had been there half of my time at least, just crying and whimpering. And I wonder if she had COVID. I don't know. If so, COVID is a horrible, horrible thing to have. Even though what I had was bad, I wasn't crying and whimpering like that. They were just trying to figure out what I had. They spent most of the time pumping me up, and the other half of the time trying to depump me with all the fluids that they gave me, was making it hard for me to breathe and hard for me to do anything else. Eventually, I got better. They sent me home. I was determined to get out of there because I just feel like the longer you stay, the worse it gets. And I was on 2 liters of oxygen when they sent me home. I quickly went to 1.5, then 5%, 0.5 oxygen to 0. It didn't take me long. About 3 days, 3.5 days, and I was no longer using the oxygen. Took me a while though to get interested in doing things, and definitely doing my YouTubes, and I was just catching up with family and friends and people telling me they were praying for me all over. That just was like, I could feel those prayers. When people say they pray, you can feel those prayers. There were people praying in Florida, New York, South Carolina, California, you name it. Portland, I mean, you name it. Bay Area, anybody who heard of it was praying for me, and it really made a big difference. So the interesting thing about my whole theory about the white blood cells, I had just a couple weeks ago, one reason why I didn't post. So suddenly under my arm where the lymph node was like a huge cyst, but I thought it was the lymph node. So I was concerned that my lymph node grew and that I was gonna, that the cancer treatment wasn't working. And I was concerned because on a Thursday it started, and by Sunday the cyst was so big I couldn't even put my arm down. And I had a doctor's appointment on Tuesday, so I saw the doctor, and I was like, look at my lymph node. She's like, how you doing? Your blood work looks good. Everything looks good. I said, well, everything's not good because look at this under my arm. I think my lymph node is actually growing, and I don't think the cancer treatment's coming back. And she looked and she said, no, that's just a pimple. It's like a huge pimple. And she said, and it's gonna burst, and I was like, a pimple? But okay, great. Thank God it's a pimple, but why so big and everything? And I'm not one that's like gonna do a YouTube and be like, hey guys, look under my arm, I don't like that when I see it on other social media when they're like, look, I got something in my eye, and I don't want to see it. So I don't believe in showing people gross pimples, but as it did, burst, my daughter read up on it, and she says, pimples are full of white blood cells, and they're like dead. And I thought, oh, I bet you that's where they went to die, because my infection now, instead of being me, was the lymph node. So I was like, I wonder if my theory was kind of true, that because it was like huge. Now it's gone, basically gone, like it's nothing there. So that was interesting. Now I'm kind of back on track. I was asked to be the cancer spokesperson, I guess, or in the newsletter for Dignity Health, which is where I work. And I guess I'm supposed to be interviewed by the newspaper about my cancer journey, which I don't know. I'm happy to do it. I mean, I like to keep it private, but if I can help somebody else, I will. I feel very grateful to be back home. I'm very grateful for all the people who are interested, and I know that people probably were wondering what I've been up to, and I just now feel so good, like it didn't even happen. But I think I got almost everything out. So I just want to thank you for being there. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm back on track. I'm off of work though until July 1st, and I am 3 weeks behind with my chemo. So unfortunately, instead of being done in June, I'll be done in July. But yeah, everything else is good, and I feel stronger than ever before. So I just wanted to say thank you, and I love you all, and I hope that if I could ever help you, that I would be there for you like you've been there for me. Okay, you have a great day. Bye-bye.